Hello everyone. So today we will be learning about DEMENT and KLEITMAN. This is the third study in the biological approach of the AS psychology syllabus. So DEMENT and KLEITMAN study basically aims to explore the rapid eye movement dream cycle and sleep schedules. So background basically refers to the information we already available have at hand, and it is the information that we are basing the rest of our study on. So typically it is known that it's very difficult to collect data from participants that are sleeping because they are not able to immediately answer about any experiences. So we have to either wait for them to wake up. Now, this can be problematic because when they wake up, they might not remember all of their experiences, or because they are drowsy after waking up, they might give inaccurate records, which can compromise the validity of our study. So, because of past studies being inaccurate, we now need an objective or physiological measure of sleep stages and dreaming. This is where the electroencephalograph and electrooculogram come in. We'll learn more about them later. So, a past study conducted by Asturinsky shows that people who were woken up in the rapid eye movement or the REM stage of their dream cycle had a more vivid recall or recollection of their dreams than those who were woken up in the non-rapid eye movement sleep stage. So the psychology being investigated here is the exploration of the relationship between the rapid eye movement stage of sleep and dreaming, as it has been previously observed that the REM stage is very similar to wakefulness or a very light sort of sleep. The brain waves are quite low in altitude but high in frequency, which indicates that the brain is active and having bizarre thoughts, and our eyes also move during this stage. However, it is still different from wakefulness because we are still sleeping, as in we are insensitive to external stimuli and we are partially paralyzed. So the sample used in this study was a sample of 9 people, out of which 7 were males and 2 were females. And 5 of these were studied extensively, up to 17 nights in the laboratory, but the remaining 4 left the study early, after spending either 1 or 2 nights each. So there was minimal data collection from these 4 participants. So this experiment was conducted in a laboratory at the University of Chicago, and the participants were all made to sleep in a quiet, dark room. They were told to abstain from caffeine and alcoholic beverages. This was done because caffeine and alcohol both interrupt sleep cycles and can cause them to be far from their natural sleep state, because caffeine causes you to stay up longer and you may disrupt your sleep stages that way, and alcohol may cause you to be drowsy or more forgetful. Other than that, the study was a lab experiment using repeated measures design as well as independent measures. So some of the apparatus that we used in the study was an EEG, which stands for an electroencephalograph. So the job of the electroencephalograph is to measure brain activity and hence indicate sleep cycles and the altitude and frequency of brainwave patterns. Now, observing these patterns, we can then determine which sleep stage they are in their cycle. Again, this is an objective and reliable measure. So the EOG, which is an electrooculogram, it's very similar to the EEG, except that the electrode tubes that come out of it are attached instead around the eye area. So because of this, we can measure instead the eye muscle movements, and hence the eye movements that occur during the REM stage of sleep can be easily measured using this device. So then there was a doorbell or electric bell used. It was loud enough to immediately rouse the participants from sleep, and it was similar to a normal doorbell. Sound was similar to a normal doorbell. Why this is important that they were woken instantly is so they did not have time to forget their dreams and were able to tell them clearly and instantly. And it was similar to a normal doorbell scenario, so that when the participants were woken up by this sound, it would not be too strange to them, as it is a pretty common thing to be woken up by a doorbell in your house. So this also furthers our ecological validity. This is a sample picture of an electroencephalograph and electrooculogram in a patient. You can see how they both display charts of brain waves and eye movement patterns. One is attached near the eye area and the other is attached on the scalp. So there are three basic aims that are being studied in this experiment. So the first aim, or the first question that we want to look at, is what is the relationship between dream recall and the rapid eye movement and non-rapid eye movement stages of one's sleep cycle. So the independent variable for this aim is whether the participant was woken up in the REM part of their sleep cycle or the non-REM part. So the DV, or the dependent variable, it was their dream recall. How vivid or how accurate was it? This was measured by them recording their dream in a tape recorder next to their bed. So this would technically be a self-report way of measuring the DV. So the basic procedure for this experiment was that we woke participants up in the rapid eye movement part of their sleep stage and the non-rapid eye movement part of their sleep stages. We never told them which stage they had been woken up in, because otherwise it may cause demand characteristics. So for example, if you already knew that you were waking up in REM stage, but you did not have a detailed recall of your dream, you would still try to add false details to it in order to perhaps please the experimenter or the exam. And similarly with non-REM, you would try to make your dream purposely non-very detailed. So we woke the participants up in a random order so that they could never guess either which stage they were being woken up in. So sometimes we did it such as 3 were woken up in REM and then 3 were woken up in non-REM, and then other times there was this one participant which we constantly told that we were waking him up in REM, but we instead woke him up in non-REM, or vice versa. So again, they were to record their dreams in the tape recorder if they had any, or if they were comfortable telling them dreams. Again, this small privacy that we're allowing them also maintains more of our ethical guidelines. So sometimes the experimenter did enter the room to ask a few follow-up questions about the dream, but he only did so once the participants had finished recalling their dreams into the tape recorder. Why this was necessary is because if the experimenter entered during the participant being recorded, the participant might either get embarrassed or might try to again add false details to their dream so they could please the experimenter, because he was right in front of them and the obedience factor would perhaps be greater. So the results from this aim were that dream recall was very frequent when we woke the participants up in the REM stage of their sleep. So out of the 191 awakenings that were done in REM, 152 of them produced good dream recalls. However, very infrequent dream recalls when they were woken up in the non-REM condition, where only 11 out of 160 instances of dream recall were observed. This can be also known as 149 out of 160 instances did not produce dream recall. I prefer remembering these numbers to percentages, because then you can subtract or add them and find out how many dream recalls were not or were occurring. Furthermore, we then observed that there was a 29% chance of dream recall if the participant was woken up within the first 8 minutes of their REM cycle having ended. However, there was a less than a 5% chance of them being able to recall their dream if they were woken up after those first 8 minutes of the REM ending. Because we use repeated measures design, it's important to note that there were no practice effects. Now, how we are certain is that even though the participants were woken up in both REM and non-REM and they were kept in the laboratory for up to 17 nights, none of them came to predict what stage they were going to be woken up in, and none of them got better or worse in recalling their dreams. So neither did their dreams get more detailed, neither did they get less detailed as the experiment went on. So dream recall is more likely to happen later in night or later in the sleep cycle. It was also observed. So when we woken up participants in like the first or second stage, second REM stage in their sleep cycle, they were perhaps less likely to recall their dreams. But if we woke them up in the second to last or in the last REM stage of their sleep cycle, they were more likely to record their dream and more likely to record a more vivid account of it. So the second aim or the second question that we are trying to get a look at is to see if there is a positive correlation. Positive correlation means that when one variable increases, so does the other, and when one decreases, so does the other. So we see if there is a positive correlation between the duration of the REM period that the participants were in prior to being woken up and the estimated length of their dream. Again, so the independent variable of this investigation was whether the participants were woken up in 5 minutes of their REM period or into 15 minutes of their REM period. Sometimes they were also left in there longer. So the dependent variable, the one we measured, was what time period they guessed they had woken up in. So the procedure was this: we woke participants up in either 5 or 15 minutes into their REM period, and then once they had woken up, they had to decide which condition they had been in. They had to decide whether they'd been in their dream 5 minutes or 15 minutes. We also quantified dream recall because since we're conducting an observation, it's important that we have quantitative data. Since we're conducting a correlation, it's important that we have quantitative data. So we also quantified the dream recall by counting the number of words in their recordings. So we studied this aim because we wanted to better understand how time progresses in the dream compared to the real world. So the results for this say that 88% of the participants guessed correct about being woken up in REM after 5 minutes, and 78% of them guessed correct about being woken up 15 minutes into their REM period. And then we correlated the number of words and REM durations, and there was a positive correlation that was moderately strong. It varied for each participant greatly, but that was the general idea that we would examine for it. There were 26 recordings of dream recall, however, that had to be excluded from the database due to poor recording, because the participants were either stammering and could not recall well, or because they had kept it too far away from their mouth, so we were not able to get proper sound. There was not much difference in the dream recall of participants who were woken up within 15 minutes of their REM and 30 to 50 minutes into their REM. Now we attribute this finding to the fact that if you have been in your dream 30 to 50 minutes long, you likely cannot remember all of the details, and hence your dream recall will be limited. Even though you experienced a vivid or a longer dream, you will not be able to recall all of it. Hence, you were unable to provide a long or detailed account of your dream. So, we did notice an individual difference. Participant DN, he constantly underestimated the duration of his dream. Now, this is another benefit of using repeated measures. We are able to understand and examine participant variables, and doing this allows us to closely examine the validity of our results.